bonjour to Wade in France. Nice to see you, Wade.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for the invite. Good to come on and have a chat.
Yeah, great. Well, you've got a great project you're involved with, but we'll get to that shortly because I think it's a lot of interest in that 11th hour racing program, and it's had really good publicity and very extraordinary boats. So I think a little bit of that later, but let's talk about Wade Morgan, the man. First of all, where did life begin for you in the sailing world?
Yeah, okay. So grew up in Belmont in Lake Macquarie, like a few other sailors around. Made the trip down the freeway quite a lot to sail in Sydney. But yeah, my dad and my family were into it, and trailer sailors and stuff like that when I was a kid. A lot of holidays up the Mile Lakes, and yeah, started sailing like the normal pathway, I guess, up at the Belmont 16-foot skiff sailing club. Wasn't much of a childhood prodigy, I wouldn't say, but I started to keep sailing and you know, really did love it. And probably when I was about 14 or 15, the club got some Elliott 5.9s, coached by a guy called Glenn Coulton up there, and that was really, I guess, the pathway into bigger boat sailing, or yachts at least. And that, you know, youth inter clubs, Harkin regattas, all those things. I did those for a couple of years with the Lake Macquarie team, and then yeah, a little bit of offshore sailing with Sydney with Dave Kellett and the guys, where I did my first Hobart, and got involved with Young Australia 2000. To be honest, in '99 was the stepping stone, I guess, to get into some more sailing. So yeah, I'd done some sailing against James Spittle in the youth inter clubs, and yeah, before you knew it, I was sailing on Ragamuffin, and then I was in New Zealand with Sid.
Tell us about that experience with Jimmy Spittle and Sid Fisher, two great characters.
Yeah, it was interesting, exciting. Not what I ever expected the America's Cup to be, I guess, at the start. But I mean, full credit to Sid for putting that together, and all the guys. He gave, you know, 15 to 20 guys an absolute leg up, you know, a head start into the pro sailing world. And it was a great timing for us. New Zealand was so close and accessible, and we didn't have much. We had to do everything ourselves. But I think that sort of turned a lot of the guys into what they are, you know, doers who don't have to rely on someone else to do the job for you. So yeah, amazing. And yeah, so many stories, everything else, living on a barge and in the local railway campus, and yeah, unbelievable, mate. Such a good experience.
Using your own money for the washing machines, is that right? That was a bit of a story going around.
We ate a lot of rice, mate. Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty funny. We got given a lot of things. We got given a bunch of bikes. They all fell apart. Local butcher would supply us meat. Otherwise, it was Sunraysia straight in the container from Sydney. And yeah, hundreds of kilos of rice. That was the meal.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you. Anyway, that obviously whetted the appetite. But let's getting back to the Hobart race. I mean, you've done 16 and you've had a fair success with line honours and handicap. Talk us about some memorable moments in the Hobart race for you.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, everyone who's probably watching this has done a bunch and or aspire to. So, you know, I remember very clearly my first race. I did it in '99. So one memory that sticks with me is being on Sydney, in fact, with Dave Kellett and with a bunch of guys who had, unfortunately, Bruce Gould was there off Winston Churchill and a few things. And probably one of the most everlasting memories I have is Dave's voice and giving the sort of the eulogy the first morning with the wreaths going over the side. And I can still gives you tingles, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people who heard that message are the same. So that was the first time after the tragic year, and I was hooked, mate. Honestly, it was just unreal. And kept going. A few with Neville Crichton, of course, which were great on big boats. Ray Roberts, Loki, Ran, all these different amazing boats and teams from all over the world that I've had a chance to sail with. But, you know, I like nothing better than going down the coast of Tasmania and hopefully getting a good nor'wester and ripping into the island. That's I'm at my happiest. Fantastic.
Yes. So you won line honours with Neville. Were you with Neville?
Yeah, twice with Neville. Yep, in '02 on the 90-footer, and then again in 2009 on the 100-footer. So yeah, they were both obviously. I was there in '05 too, unfortunately. So yeah, done a couple with Neville, and you know, Neville's been a big part of my career as well. I worked with and for him for going on 15 years in various capacities. So that's always been a big part of the Hobart, sailing with Neville. And then I was on Rosebud as well in 2007 with the Americans when we got the handicap there. So that was a great experience with a bunch of guys I'd met overseas, and then they brought their boat down. And then again with Matt, I did 3 emails with Matt, Hobarts with Matt Allen in the last few years. I'm watching the guy do an email next to me. 3 Hobarts with Matt Allen in the last few years, and the first one that he's won on the new boat, I was there for that too. So all those experiences are great. And to be honest, 2 years ago on Guilo, when we managed to get a second on a relatively new campaign, that's been a real highlight as well.
Well, they've all been very good campaigns with very good owners and skippers, haven't they, for you? You've been very
they have.
in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, I guess, at that side of the sport the whole way, which is very fortunate in that sense to always have good equipment and good sailors, and but equally, you get in you get out what you put into. So we haven't always achieved what we wanted either, but if you do everything well, then the chances of success are obviously better. So I've loved the people, the boats, the owners, everything about it. It's been unreal.
Now, I'll take you to the Volvo race. You did it with Abu Dhabi with Ian Walker in 2011, 2012. Got off to not the start that you'd want. Tell us about that. Started from, I think, Alicante, didn't it, in that year in the Med?
Yeah, it did.
And there was a lot of wind.
Yeah.
A lot of wind.
There was plenty that night. Yeah. It was one of those. You see the forecast a few days out, you go, "Oh, it won't be that bad." Well, yes. It was windy. So we got you. First of all, you have the massive frenzy and the emotion they try and build up and everything else, and you're like, okay, finally we're outside of Alicante. We're reaching quite fast down the coast, but knowing we had a bit of a kicking that night coming, and sure enough, we got one. So we think we'd just gone down to 2 reefs and maybe the J4, and I remember being up on the side and we're stacking some sails, I think, and then we went off one of the biggest free falls I've ever had, and it all just crumbled. So I don't know if we're 10 hours in. We weren't 12. We had the rig in the water, and we had to get it back on board and get back and try and get back in the race. So you're right, it wasn't a great start, but it was something we had to deal with.
That was the Volvo's, was that the 70s then, or was it this Volvo 70, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the third race in the Volvo 70s, the final race, in fact, in the Volvo 70s, which was, there were 3 different designers out there, and the boats were still obviously being experimented, but they were becoming a bit more refined. They were all going pretty quick in their own little windows. We might not have had the right window, but we still had a bit of a weapon in certain conditions as well. So it was my first Volvo Ocean Race experience, and something that I was keen to always do again. But when it tacked into the one designs, it was less appealing to me, and I was doing some other stuff. So it's good to be back in the arena again now, I guess. Yeah.
But did you put the boat on the ship to go down to Cape Town, or did you get a new mast and sail on? What happened there?
Oh, well, yeah. So we went back. We got back at midday the next day. I'm sure it was a public holiday for whatever reason. Well, our mast had already left on a truck towards Amsterdam, where they all the rigs store up in Rotterdam, maybe. So we'd had guys already drive across the country to turn the truck driver around. So by the time we got back, our spare mast was there. So then we had to go about getting that in the boat. But what then happened is, once we got going after 2 days or maybe a day and a half, we got our spare rig in the boat. We basically ended up in a vacuum, a typical Mediterranean vacuum after a storm. So we struggled away, but it got to the point where we couldn't make Cape Town and effect the rig repairs we needed. So we took a right-hand turn and found a ship in Lisbon. So off we went to Portugal, built cradles, took the rig out, all those fun stuff you get to do on the waterfront. And then we put it on a ship to Cape Town, went down there, took it off the ship, did some rig work to the spare mast so we could be a bit more confident going forward, and got ready for the next leg to Abu Dhabi.
And did you find out what happened to the original rig? Was it a rigging failure or a section failure? Or
rigging failure. It was ironic in some ways, because we used Future Fibers, who are a rigging company, for our mast and rigging, and the tubes were beautiful. They really were, and it was continuous rigging, so all the diagonals spliced into the verticals, and they cure that carbon rigging. They electrocute it basically to cure the carbon, and we got a bad cure. We'd had a few sets of that rigging on the training boats, but anyway, ultimately that set let us down.
Right. But then you won a transatlantic leg on the way home, didn't you? From Miami to Portugal. Where was that? To Portugal or somewhere?
Yeah, that was to Lisbon. Yeah.
Lisbon,
we'd had a few kicks along the way. We had a bad leg in the Southern Ocean where we broke a again, we left in a big forecast out of New Zealand, and we ripped a bulkhead out of the boat. So we went back that night. The boys stuck that in, and then we got going again the next day, bit behind the fleet, and then we did a lot of destruction in the Southern Ocean on our boat as well. We had a few failures. So we ended up on a ship to Brazil, and then that was all fever pitched. So the team was really down by the time we got to Miami. We were fine on the way in Miami, but we just didn't compete in that reaching stuff. Our boat wasn't that quick. So once we got to Miami, the team was flat, so it was hard. But then to pick ourselves up and get that win on the Atlantic, it is a career highlight, because we battled our way and we ended up getting a good lead, and then we started reaching again. And I think we had 250 miles, and we finished in the river with the competitors by the end. We sailed into a bit of a ridge getting into Lisbon. So yeah, the team had good fight, and a real good bunch of guys I'd go anywhere with. So
but just going back a step, you left Auckland, you had to come back, and then did you do damage and you had to go into, you didn't go round the Horn in the race? What happened?
No, we ended up in Portimont in Chile with Camper. In fact, we both ended up broken in this fjord in Chile. So we couldn't repair ours. Camper they were flying pieces of the boat in surfboard bags to Chile and everything to try and get their boat repaired, which Coxie and the boys ended up getting done. They sailed off and sort of made up the numbers to finish in Brazil. But we were probably out of the running for the win by then anyway. We were. So we ended up on the ship and did a better repair, so we didn't have to try and repair again in Miami. So it's a logistical race, It's a part of the Volvo and the Ocean Race that I think the story doesn't get told well enough. It's truly amazing, some of the stories of against adversity to get your boat to the next start or get it fixed on the way. It's incredible. There's hours of that talk, shippers.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the skipper was Ian Walker, the Englishman, a gold medalist, and he came out 4 years later and won the race, didn't he, in another Abu Dhabi?
That's right. So I guess the core of this team started with Green Dragon. That team, started with Green Dragon, which was a bit of a late underfunded team, but they had some good moments too, I think, and then rolled into the Abu Dhabi Volvo 70, where we built a boat, had a training boat as well. And then from there, they had the Abu Dhabi sponsorship again in the Volvo 65s. And I think all of these things, it's very hard to win on your first outing in whether it's America's Cup Volvo or Sydney Hobart for that matter. So by the time we'd figured everything out in the Volvo 70 race, a lot of the guys went back again and did the 65. And they won it pretty convincingly, really.
Yeah. Talking about America's Cup, then you drifted into Luna Rossa for the 2013 Cup. How did that come about?
Probably, if you take the clock back a little bit, in 2007, I was with the French Cup team, the Riva Challenge, for a couple of years in Valencia, and got to know the Luna Rossa guys then. So I pretty much joined them in 2008 for some events, and I did the CNEV regatta. Remember that regatta that was done for that yacht club in Spain that Alinghi had created? So I actually did that. I actually did that regatta with Luna Rossa, and we did the Pacific Series. So I was always tied to Luna Rossa for a few years, I guess. And just before the start of the Volvo, actually, I got an email from Max Arena saying, "We're in with this big cat. Are you keen?" And I said, "Yeah, I am," after the Volvo. So I went, did the Volvo while they were sailing AC45s, and I'd finished the Volvo a few days, and I was down at the end of Sardinia with an SL33 catamaran, figuring out that we're going foiling. So that was a pretty exciting time.
So you were part of the racing crew?
Yep, for the AC72 in San Fran, yeah. So didn't do much of the small boat sailing. There was already under control, good guys there doing that. So I got involved for the big boat, went straight to New Zealand, and even everything from trying to understand how to put the wing in the boat and launch the thing, which was, it was 40, 45 people for an hour to do that each way. So that was kind of my job there, and a sailor as well.
And what were they like to sail on?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
No, they were good. They're just, the one thing which I guess strikes you is that the elevators couldn't be adjusted on the rudders. So the fastest way around the racetrack is with a lot of elevator, which means when you bear away, you're going to go bow down. And learning all of that, it was so raw at the time. And I think those AC72s are what probably pioneered wing foiling and kite foiling and all these other things, where now it's kind of run of the mill. You go down the harbour and you see all these foiling boats and craft every day. Whereas when we're doing on the AC-72s, no one believed it could happen, and some pretty good designers didn't think it could happen either. So it was exciting times.
I saw a photo the other day of a laser foiling, and it foils on a laser. So there you go.
I think you put enough horsepower and enough lift, and anything takes off, it seems.
And what was it like sailing with Luna Rossa? Good campaigns?
Yeah, fantastic. You know, Luna Rossa's talk about being in the game for a long time. You know, they've been there since the mid 90s. Their first cup was 2000, and there's so much learning and structure that goes into a team like that, and 100 plus people, and it's 24 hours a day it never stops, you know, and the forecasting on where you want to be. Foils take several months to build, so we've got to get the sailing in to learn so they can do the next evolution, etc. So it's really impressive to watch how a big machine like that works. And it's a business, you know, it has to have all those right parameters in place to just to operate daily. And then beyond that, we're trying to invent and be creative and make smart strategical decisions. People all over the world working. It's pretty cool. It's an amazing experience.
Are they going again? Have they announced whether they're going to have another go at the next cup?
They haven't announced, I don't think formally, but yeah, I think they're there. I know that there's people around in Sardinia who are doing stuff, so
right.
They're waiting.
I think they obviously, all the syndicates put so much into last time being a new boat. It'd be hard to let all that go, I guess, now, wouldn't it?
I think it's hard to walk away. Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously an expensive game, but they've got the head start, you know. So if you've done the cup in that class, I mean, it's going to be very hard for anyone else to catch you in the short term. So you've got something you can sell, that's for sure, to another team, or you go again and use your experience. So,
well, I think this Friday, New Zealand are meant to be announcing where the next cup's going to be held. Had any intelligence of where it might be?
Like all these rumours, ship. It's a good try.
Yeah.
Don't really know. I think, obviously New Zealand's struggling. I'd heard Jeddah might be a good spot with plenty of good wind. They're a candidate, I think. But yeah, I mean, I've given up guessing on things like that.
Yeah. And Ireland have got their shoe in as well.
They do. Yeah. I heard Valencia might be out, but Spain is still in. So I heard that too. So yeah, as I say, I don't know too much on what to believe in all that world nowadays.
Well, that's the America's Cup, isn't it? Keeps you guessing.
Sure is.
Keeps you guessing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, that's great, Wade. Let's now move on to your latest project in France, 11th Hour Racing. What is it all about? I mean, it's built around sustainability, I think, that the whole program. Firstly, how did you get involved with it?
11th Hour Racing. So we're the 11th Hour Racing team, and that's the 11th Hour Racing. So 11th Hour Racing's foundation out of America, which is promoting ocean health and sustainability, and specifically for us, it's around the marine industry and some traditional poor practices, and trying to do a bit of innovation and trying to understand exactly what the IMOCA takes. There's a bunch of other videos online you might see on the building process people could tune into. Maybe there's some links around that could go, but the focus has been around getting this team going and understanding, as I say, what might be able to be changed in the IMOCA rule as a baseline and how that can filter through to other projects. So that's kind of why we're here. And I just got a bit of out of the blue text maybe 2 years ago in September saying, hey, we're from Mark Toll. They were back on for the Ocean Race. You keen? Let's talk. And that's where it came to. So they were looking for someone to hopefully work between the design team, the sailing team, with obviously composite skills, but also sailing knowledge. And that's, I guess, where they found me. Done a few boats before and a lot of sailing with a lot of these guys. So they felt they could relate, and our technical partners and our designers needed that intermediary to work in the middle.
So you were the build manager. Was that the title?
That's right. Yeah. So build manager is the title. So that kind of covers everything from ordering of a lot of the parts, but also working between, as I say, the design team, the conceptual side of the sailing team, what they might like, trying to balance the weight, the risk, the reward, the cost, all those things in the middle. And then as the boat once we make a lot of those decisions and we work on the design, I was also, I guess, brought in because of, the start of this conversation, we talked about putting a boat on a ship in Lisbon or whatever. The IMOCA regime is about a 4-year cycle where they do the Vendée Globe, finish the Vendée Globe. So right now we're in year 1, Transact Jacques Vabre, following year the Route du Rhum, following year the Jacques Vabre again, and then the Vendée. So if you're out of a race in any of this world, you don't need to pick it up. And for example, a center point lift is something that no IMOCA has. We need to be able to pick our boat up from Tristan to Cunha if we lose a rig out there like Puma did. So the reliability and the servicing side of this boat was something we had to change versus the general IMOCA for the race we're doing. We also have to hand steer. Well, they've taken that rule out now, but when we started, we had 5 crew and we had to hand steer the boat with a heading only autopilot instead of an instinctive computerized pilot like all the IMOCAs have. So there was a lot of work to be done on the deck layout and designs and the systems to make it usable for what we wanted to use it for. So that's what I was tasked with.
Right. Now, the IMOCA, for those that don't know, stands for the International Monohull Open Class Association. And it's normally sailed by single-handed guys, and we see them racing around the world and with all their foils. But for next year's Ocean Race, which is the old Volvo or old Whitbread race, they're going to be a crewed 2 divisions, a crewed IMOCA and the old Volvo 65, so 2 divisions. So you've had to, with this IMOCA, set it up so that you can fit 4 or 5 crew, 4 crew or 5 crew?
4 crew plus the media. So, but when we started designing, it was 5 crew plus the media, so 6 people.
Yeah. So, and you've done big mock-ups of the interior and deck layout to make sure it all works. So you've said, some of the articles have said, look, it's hard to work out. We've got a 60-foot boat. We've got to fit 5 people in there. People say, wow, 50-foot boat. We've got 10 or 12 or 15 people. Why is it so confined?
Oh, it's a good question. One, I guess the whole thing comes back to that IMOCA, the IMOCA class and their rule. So when you think about the rule, how they measure a boat, an IRC rule, for example, is quite basic in that it's got length, width, draft, it's got some weights, but really that's it. Whereas in the IMOCA class, there's a stability rule, which is really important. And you might remember seeing boats that get put upside down and self-righting, etc. So that's gone now. We don't have to do that. It gets done in the computer simulation. But the boats get pulled down to 90 degrees at the dock and we measure the load on the masthead. That's really the big ticket item. So the lower the center of gravity, the lower everything, the better. That's the simple view. So when you make a boat bigger with more room in it, more freeboard, everything just gets heavier. So that raises your center of gravity because the keel's one design. So then you end up with a slower boat. You end up with less water ballast, or you end up with a heavier bulb. And it's amazing these boats want light bulbs normally instead of heavy bulbs. So very different to what we normally think. So this whole measurement style of sailing promotes a small confined boat, long and the short. And the foil cases that go right through the middle almost break off the front and the back of the boat. So water ballast tanks each side, which are huge. They're over 1,000 litres in almost every case. For a 60-foot boat that only weighs between 7 and 9 tons, depending on the boat when you leave the shed. So we put another 1,000 kilos in the back, almost at water on some boats. So, these areas all take up the space. The cockpits get pushed right back. There ends up being little room downstairs. They're horrible little shells, to be honest, Pete, but they go fast.
You said the keel's one design. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so there's a few parts of the IMOCA that is one design. The keel fin is one design. The keel ram system is one design, and the mast is one design. So you have to buy them from suppliers, and that's really about cost saving and trying to limit an area of revolution. Whereas there's plenty going on with foils and the rest of it and hull shapes. If you walk down the dock, some are a bit skinnier, some have got blunt bows, some have got what they call a spatula with a big V under the front. Then you've got the scow style. So there's plenty of evolution and plenty of areas to work on. So those one design components, they simplify it a little bit and make the building process easier with those complicated parts.
But you're building to a box rule. It's a box rule, isn't it? The IMOCA rule.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a box rule with a few one design components tossed in there.
But if you've got a one design keel, but is the bulb you can have your own bolt.
Do what you like. Yep.
Right. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So even the keel structure, you know, you can do what you like, but it has to fit in the one design keel and has to fit in the one design ram. So, I mean, everyone ends up pretty similar, I guess. You know, it's not, you don't really put a lot of focus on that, but there are lots of different solutions for the structure, and the designers work incredibly hard on optimizing that. So you'll see the shapes of the boat, and even our boat with the big curves in the top sides. That's not just for aerodynamics or aesthetics. A lot of that's about structure as well. And if you can get a lot more unis on those curves, then maybe you can take out a deck beam or whatever. So there's lots of thought goes into these boats.
And for the majority of the time, the crew will be inside the boat, will they?
Yep, absolutely. These boats are wet and rugged, and you know, having been outside on Volvo 70s and other boats, these ones, it's just, honestly, it's just not possible. They're so traumatic when you're on board, the way they slam and drop when they're on the foil, and then they drop off the foil, they hit down pretty hard. So being inside, whilst it takes away a bit of what we know of in the Ocean Race or the Volvo, the history there, and standing outside getting battered on these boats, it's almost a necessity.
So where's the tiller? Does that extend right into the cabin, does it?
Yeah, kind of. So the cockpit, as you see it, we've kind of got the two eyes on the side of our cockpit. If you'll look back at the video, that's what we call the helm station. So that's originally where we were with the steering wheel. So you can look up, see the mainsail, you can look out. Certainly you can look after where you're steering. So you get very good visibility there. And also the leeward window is great for trimming. You can go down and see your sails to leeward as you would do ordinarily, but you're in the safety of the cockpit. And what we've found with the training boat is that peeling and actually changing sails at speed like we've done before, and we do in the Volvo and you do every other Hobart and every other race, it's just not realistic. These boats are just too aggressive, and when they fall and you're on the foredeck, you know, I mean, chances of staying on board is pretty slim. So when you change sails, you got to get prepped up, and then you basically slow down, take any rake off the foil, and you do the change and then get going again. So we've got a great chart of what it costs to change a sail on board. So, you know, it might be 2 miles, it might be 5 miles. It depends on how fast you're going and how long it's going to take you. So you really got to think long in advance, and it's a bit of a different mentality. Whereas we match another boat, these guys have got to match the weather system in their boat, and when to change sails is a big decision.
And what about the foils? They're adjustable now. They weren't previously, were they? Or they?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Vendée Globe, you could adjust them. So you're allowed, in the rule, it describes it as 2 degrees of freedom. So the first degree of freedom is in and out. That's pretty standard. And the next one is what we refer to as rake. So you basically move the top bearing forward and backwards, and it can't be tricky. It can't be on curved races to change the twist of the foil or anything like that. It's just forward and backwards and in and out are the 2 adjustments you get. But that's taken it from the little foils that you saw in the previous 2016 Vendée with Hugo Boss and Bank Populaire and those boats that perform pretty well still now, to these big foils that, you know, in some conditions could be 3 to 5 knots quicker.
And do the foils retract into the hull?
Always get left with that monster tip out of the boat. I think our boat with the foils retracted still about 8 or 9 meters wide. Might even be more, might be 10 meters wide. And I think when you put them down, the boats go out to 13 or 14 meters wide.
Wow. And what
big numbers.
What speed, Wade, do you think you'd get up to?
Pretty easily in the high 20s. Yeah. I mean, we were out the other day, and the boats can sit on anywhere between 26 and 30 knots at 90 degrees true wind angle, which is obviously pretty quick and not much wind. Once it starts to get over 25 knots of wind, the speeds, obviously they don't go up. But the fastest angle is when you are on the foil and skimming. You catching waves is a bit exciting, because as you go down the wave and you accelerate, the lift of the foil gets bigger, so the boat tends to want to get up out of the water. So once it starts to get windy and you're going fast, you've got to tone it back and pull your foils in. Where they're fastest is reaching, like the Transat Jacques Vabre this year, with all of the next generation of foils out, we're going to see some monster runs, I think.
And do the rudders have elevators? They don't, do they?
No, but one boat came out overnight. L'Occitane, or what is now Bureau Valley, put an elevator on. So there's a video online you might find, which is full foiling in Mocha, the first one. So if we had elevators, it'd probably mean we could run smaller foils and maybe get a better all-rounder. But like the America's Cup rule in 2013, when you couldn't adjust your elevators, here you don't have them, so you design around them. That's just half the course.
And it's designed by Verdier. Is that how to pronounce his name? Verdier?
That's right. Yeah, Guillaume Verdier, yeah.
Frenchman, who's right into this mockers. What talks about the sail program? That looks interesting. The mast's a long way aft. But I was reading about your aerodynamics, about your sail program. Your furlers are way very low on the deck. There's a lot of end plating with your sails too.
That's right, yeah. So our just thinking if any videos have been online with our J2 out, but we've focused really heavily on that aerodynamics. These boats are going quicker, and lowering the center of effort of your sail plan is really important. We see that in the America's Cup. We've seen that across the fleet, and as these boats go quicker and quicker, it becomes more and more important. So yeah, we've got our entire rig hidden within fairings. Our furlers are below deck, as you say. Everything we could to lower the CG and improve the aerodynamics has been done, really. Because we feel it's a big deal, especially in the upwind sailing that the Ocean Race has. It has a lot more tighter angle sailing, where the apparents are right forward, and the general IMOCA fleet is built to go downwind, and aerodynamics haven't been a big part of their thinking. So our sail movements as well, we've got tracks on everything, whereas the IMOCAs usually don't have jib tracks, certainly, and we've got a straight mainsail track, which has been doing all the French's head in, because they've all got curved tracks. Different styles, but it's geared around that fact that we've got extra people on board, so we may as well use them. So by having simpler sail handling techniques, we took some weight for it, for sure, but our strategy said that it was a better way to get around the world faster. So that's why we did it. What
about the mainsail? That's got an end plate effect down to the deck. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it's right. I mean, the cabin top's designed so as when the boom is out, that the boom essentially end plates itself on the deck, and other boats are following suit. We actually had one on our previous boat to test the efficiency, etc., and there might even be a little bit more to come on that yet, Pete.
Right. Okay, stay tuned. Now I want to talk about autopilots. What's the reliance on those? I mean, are they for steering? Are they linked into the wind and the foils? How complicated or sophisticated are they?
Very is the answer. So I think if you look at the hardware on the bench, it looks the same as what anyone would have. We're using VG Pilot, we're using a Simrad ramp. It's Raymar's ramp. It all looks pretty normal. But the programming, that's super complicated, and we've got things which I guess they refer to in the games called overlays. So there are a whole bunch of presets that you can start to use that might change the way the boat reacts in a certain, when you're foiling, when you're not. It's all taking raw data off the rig, but at another level of complexity, Pete, is that the rig twists. It's a rotating mast. So first, when we rotate the mast, the boat needs to know what angle the mast is to the boat, and then it back calculates the wind angle. It's an incredibly complicated matrix, and we've got a really smart guy that works on it. We work with another company. So the first boat has done a lot of work learning, and then we can bring that across to the new boat as well. So that's another reason to have the training boat, and the strategy's got to be long. You can't learn your autopilot in 6 weeks or a month, and you can't buy it. It's so boat specific, and it's really complicated. I know it's been a topic in the CYC there last year, so it's not for the faint-hearted and autopilot optimization, that's for sure.
So in the Ocean Race, or the ex-Volvo race next year, how would you anticipate the autopilot being used? Would it be used a majority of the time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you end up in the point where, again, it's what you get out what you put into it. So if you don't spend a lot of time sailing on the pilot, teaching it, then you're not going to have a good one. You're not going to be as fast as the other guy. But if you can trim around the pilot as well, that helps. So in our configuration for the Ocean Race, where you've got 2 people on deck, you could have 1 steering and 1 trimming, or we can have 2 trimming. That's where we're going to end up.
Yeah. Well, what's the race for next year? What's the entries looking like? Have they got many entries at this stage in both the Amoca and the Volvo, the Volvo 65?
Yeah, so there's another Imoca in build for Boris Herman, who did the last Volvo on Bondi on Milizia. So he's building a boat, and there is a lot of interest. And the Ocean Race Europe was a real good help for all that. But I mean, the climate's been hard. The landscape of the world with COVID and everything else has made this race tricky. But you know, there is a lot of interest, as I say, on the back of the Ocean Race Europe. It was a great event. So as well as physical entries, there's all the Volvo 65s are owned and pretty much showed up for that last race. So hopefully a lot of them show up. And the for the Imoca side of things, there's the Route to Rum next year. So I think they're looking at ways to try and either incorporate that or delay the Ocean Race a little bit to make sure that we end up with a good fleet. The Imoca guys see the benefit big time in sailing around the world with a crew. That's not lost on anyone how much faster they'll be for their Vendée Globe. So I know that the majority of guys here are maybe on the fence a little bit, but if and when it gets that little bit extra traction and we know where we're going and how the race is going to look, I think we'll see a few jump on board.
Could you take an Amoca from the Vendée Globe and do this race with crew, or would you have to alter it down below so that you can fit all the crew on board?
I think down below is okay. You know, we're not a lot different inside. It's our cockpit layout we worked hard on. No. But with the removal of having to hand steer, which is what we designed our boat for, it opens up the other deck layouts a lot. So it's probably a good thing for the majority of the fleet to be able to sail now. Some boats have 4.5 pedestals where it's a single-hander boat, so they're not even good for double-handers. Some of them, they should, you know, consider that if they wanted to do the ocean race, they need to probably change their pedestal.
Are you allowed powered winches?
No, all manual. In fact, you're not allowed even any electronic switching on any of your hydraulics or anything like that. It's all kind of manual.
Right.
But powered keel, of course, much like all county keel boats. But yeah, pedestal driven, everything's on your own. So with aerodynamics, we put a huge emphasis on friction as well, to try and make our sail changes faster, which to us is just less loss. So a lot of the Imocas will probably need to improve a few of those areas as they build them just for weight, and they figure that they're going around the Vendée and the guy can't adjust the sails anyway because he's sleeping and cooking and repairing and everything. So a bit of a different mentality on deck layout and systems from us, but nothing that someone couldn't retro into another boat.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the sustainability side of things. I've read with interest that, you know, you haven't thrown anything away. You know, scraps of carbon you've made into desks, and so there's obviously been a huge focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the really important thing, Peter, says from design, when you launch into the build as you do, when we didn't do a recycled carbon mold, which is a regret to me now, but timing didn't allow it with the ocean race starting. Had we known it was delayed a year, COVID didn't exist, so it wasn't that we could have predicted it. But you know, a recycled carbon tool, it's a huge part of the footprint. So the waste, there's a few things. There's one, trying to reuse your waste, and then there's sort of limit your waste as well. They're both big factors before you even get into alternative materials. So there's the first two things that you try and figure out. You know, like where it's pretty obvious if you don't make mess and you don't have to clean it up. So it's the same with wastage and plastic and everything else. We do everything we can to minimize it. And part of this team's sort of deal is to try and show ways and inform people that it is easy to think about it and do a better job. And then the second part is, yes, instead of throwing away, like using a scrap carbon, making something useful out of it instead of just discarding it. Some stuff you can't, of course. There's a limit. There's a level of waste you have to sort of accept. But we've done our best with that. And then beyond that, you've got the alternative materials, which is a space which lots of people are looking at, from F1 to aeroplanes, other boat building yards, trying to incorporate flax fiber and recycled carbon, especially recycled PET, bioresins. We've been exploring a lot of that stuff, which was off my radar, you know, a couple of years ago. I didn't even really consider it. Always known that boat building is a pretty bad industry, but never really considered how you might fix that. So 11th hour hopefully can show a lot of other people that, you know, like me that didn't really maybe appreciate it, that there is another option.
What is flax fibre? That's a plant, is it?
It's linen. It's linen like your pants on a Sunday, Peter.
Right.
Yeah, it's just linen. It's grown locally. It's a pretty decent fibre for laminating. Some stuff's not great. You know, we had a look at bamboo. It's very light, but you know, you can't impregnate the fibres of some products. There's basalt fibre. It's showing a bit of promise as well. But the way to use these products is what scares people off, I think, because they're a bit foreign. And, you know, 25, 30 years ago, some guy walked into McConaughey boats with a roll of carbon fibre and said, this is the stuff we're going to use. And everyone probably went, what? How's that going to work? And before you know it, it becomes the norm. So, you know, flax fibre is a product that is, its carbon footprint's very low. It takes a lot of water to grow. So, you know, we're not going to be producing flax in Australia anytime soon, I don't think. But as far as a product to laminate, it's quite usable. It's somewhere between fiberglass and Kevlar by way of usability. And yeah, you build relatively decent products. They're a bit soft and flexible, but they're not going to break. And I've been pretty impressed with a lot of those products.
So where are you now, right at the moment?
Right this second, I'm out the front of the Mocha offices here in Lorient. There's an old Verback there. So this week we've got a regatta called the Defi Azimut, which is 3 or 4. It ends up being about 5 days. It's 3 races, which the Mocha fleet love to get together for, part of the Globe Series before the Transat Jacques Vabre. So tomorrow we've got speed runs out the front here, which is a exciting day for media and everything else. They set up a course and basically we do time trials, work out who's the fastest. So that's good.
And what's the weather like? What's the weather looking like?
It's looking all right. Yeah, 12 to 15 knots, which is and they can rotate the course. They've got enough room, so it'll be a 90-degree reach in 15 knots. So hopefully we'll see some good numbers. If we could get 18 or 20, it'd be really good numbers, I think. The next day is a 48-hour race. So the course is undefined. It's a virtual course, which they'll tell us closer to the time. So that'll be 2-handed with media on each boat. And then they get back Saturday afternoon. And on Sunday, we do a race around Ile-de-Gois. It's just an island off the coast here. So I think that's about a 15 or 20 mile race. Everyone will be out there, and that's a fully crewed race. So I think it's 5 or 6.
Will you race in that?
Yeah, it's going to bring me out of mothballs for that one, see if I can still do it.
They're going to have someone to blame when things don't work.
Exactly. Imagine. They'll be stoked.
And then what after that? We're just more tuning and...
Yep, a couple more days. Yeah, a couple more days on the water, straight on the back of it, and then into a 8-day period at the dock for both boats. In fact, the other boat, 11-1, will go straight back to the dock Monday or Sunday night. So it'll start its work. This boat will have a few more days of sailing, and then we'll stand it down for another week or so. Get it back out, then they've got to do qualifiers and, you know, try and get as much sailing time as we can before the TGV. So, yeah, we're aiming for 20-odd days sailing between now and then, which is the 7th of November. So,
and that's an interesting race, that TJV, because there's a number of classes and they all go in different directions and all end up at the same place, don't they?
That's right, yeah. Well, they try and finish them together, I guess. They start them together and finish them together, but then you've got 40-knot old team trimarans, and then you've got class 40s. So, yeah, they look to get everyone there together, or within reason. And, yeah, everyone's got a bit of a different route. And, yeah, they kind of, even with, I think the open 40s, they can change their course midway. They've got, maybe after they pass the first mark, there might be 2 marks. They can delete the second mark and things like that. So there's ways to tune their courses underway.
And you end up in Martinique.
That's right, yeah.
Pretty nice place to end up.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah. Might put my hand up.
Sure.
But how many Amoccas have you got for tomorrow for this regatta?
I really don't know, but I'd imagine it'd be in between the 20s and 30s.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere there. Yeah. I think there's 32 or something entered for the Transat Jacques Vabre. So
yeah.
I'd imagine most of them will be here, yeah. It's just an Amocca event, this one.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got a couple of questions from our friend Youngster in New Zealand.
No, next.
Yeah. He mustn't have been listening, because I thought we've solved these. Anyway, he says, are the rudder elevators allowed in the Ocean Race and the Vendée Globe Race?
No. they're not. There's a part of, there are a fair few people that like to see them, but
Yeah.
at the moment, yeah, Mock is staying staunch on that elevators aren't coming in soon.
Right. So another one from youngster, Anthony.
I'm surprised
Maiden.
he's up this late. Usually he's gone to bed by now.
Yes, yes. What speed will you do at 90 true in 15 knots?
15 knots. High 20s.
High 20s. There you go.
High 20s.
Let's hope you get that.
He'd be a bit scared usually.
Let's hope you get that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll know tomorrow. It'll all be live, I think. I'm sure Facebook will be going live from the Mocha class. So that'll be pretty interesting to see who's out there.
Right. Okay. Well, Wade, what happens to you now? You stay with the program for a while? You're hoping you come back for Christmas? Is that the plan?
That's the plan, yeah. At the moment, 100% here until the TGV. So still plenty of work to do to get this thing finished, that's for sure. So yeah, here with that. And then, yeah, really just see how the ocean race is looking. You know, hoping it all goes ahead and, you know, maybe come home for Christmas. Yep. Hopefully get in for the Hobart on Guilo is the plan at this stage. And then, yeah, come back next year and get prepped up for the ocean race. What
are the COVID restrictions in France, if any?
It's pretty relaxed, really, at the moment. It's yeah, no lockdowns or anything at the moment. Yeah, masks indoors, and then restaurants are all open, and no, it's not too bad here at the moment. But you know, for the first until May 19, when I came up here, there was nothing open. So I got here at the start of January, and yeah, had a few nights in, that's for sure.
Were they heavy on the vaccination? Is that?
Yeah, within reason. I think it's they just really by the time May came, they sort of relaxed it and just opened it all up really long before the vaccination thing took on. Right. So yeah, no, it's all going okay here at the moment, but yeah, there were lots of cases certainly when I got up here.
Now here's another question that might take a long while to answer, and I don't know if we've got time. Hi Wade, can you please tell us some stories about sailing with Ray Roberts? Hollywood Ray.
I don't know if this is the right forum, but like honestly though, I've been sailing with Ray. My first Hobart with Ray was on the Red Hollywood. When was that? 2001 maybe. Yeah. So yeah, even the last year we built a little 40-footer for him a couple of years ago, which was great. So I've been doing a lot of sailing with Ray, and
the great character.
Dozens of countries with Ray. He's been unreal for the sport, and I can't wait till we do the next one.
Yeah, no, he's a great player, Ray. So there we are. All right, Wade, well, look, thank you. It's been really tremendous and very insightful for what you're doing and what you've done. I think it's an interest to everyone. And I'd really highly recommend, if they haven't seen the 11th hour racing, jump on the website or Google whatever we do. And there's some fascinating stuff there. And it must have been fabulous to be involved in the whole project to where you are now. And it's still more to come, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's constantly evolving as well. Like we talked about the alternative materials and all that other stuff. You know, this space is something that's got a lot of traction in a lot of sports at the moment, as we know. But, you know, 11th hour racing are right behind all these initiatives, and anything we can do to, you know, try and help in that space, they're onto it. So, yeah, I'd encourage everyone as well to like and share, as they say, get online. There are some really interesting videos about the design process and that came out this last few weeks, which you should get on board and have a look and get a cup of tea. There's plenty of interesting stuff that you might not think about. So good luck.
Yeah, good on you. All right, mate. Well, terrific. Stay well and safe over there, and good luck with the project and program. And hopefully see you in December back at the CYC. So thanks very much for your time.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Pete.
Right, mate. All the best. Good night.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's been terrific. So until next time, we'll say a very good evening and stay safe and stay well.